Hey, I am your host, Van Allen Plexico, and I am reading all of the Avengers. And I am joined today to talk about two pretty important issues in Avengers history, I think we can fairly say, by two of the most important, I guess, longest serving Jarvis-Heads from AvengersAssemble.net, among other things. And I'll let them tell you what else the other things are. This is Vince Alvarez and Mark Beaulieu.
Hello.
Vince and Beaulieu, welcome aboard, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Welcome. Thank you, Van.
And it's so good to see you two guys and have you on here. So, whichever one of you wants to do it, tell us all listeners and viewers what you guys have been doing with your other Marvel related project that's going on.
I'll go ahead and start that. Actually, the Marvel a Day project is a Twitter and Facebook group, and it's exactly what it says. We read one Marvel comic through the Chronology Project a day and post screenshots and commentary on it. This started with Fantastic Four #1. What was that? November of 2019, I believe.
Sounds
And
right.
then we just are actually tomorrow we're going to be reading the last issue of 1969. So we're going to start the 70s this week. So it's an amazing project. It's a lot of fun. If you aren't familiar with it, check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
It's amazing that you guys are already to the 70s. I just keep thinking, man, how are they already this far along? But so how long do you think it's going to take you to get caught up to the present?
That's not going to
Oh,
happen.
I don't
It's not
think
gonna
we'll
happen.
be able to in our lifetimes. No.
Yeah, I don't even think I could make it through the 90s. So,
Well, you've
um,
already almost finished the 60s, so that's one decade down already, right?
True, but there
yeah,
weren't as many books in the 60s.
the
Now
thing
we're
that I'm
getting.
actually quite happy about is that the 70 to 74 period is a period that I don't know much about at all. As a kid, I probably started in 74, 74, 75, really got into them in 76 and 77. But, I've read the 60s and reprints and epic collections and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, but yeah, this is a period of time where we're reading like Iron Man, and I'm like, I don't remember these stories at all. I don't
Yeah,
think
I'd
I've
have
ever
to
read them.
agree. This the 20-cent era that I'm most unfamiliar with. I started reading in the 25-cent era, read 15 cents and 20 cents in back issues, but yeah, the 20-cent or the 15-cent issues they're a back issue, but the 20-cent issues, yeah, are kind of a vague hole for me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is kind of an era that it's not the classic reprints, but it's not the stuff that we were all kind of old enough for, and it kind of fell into that in between slot.
Right.
It
Exactly.
fell between the seat and the console like a French fry, and you're just now digging that French fry out. That's a gross example, but there you go. So, um, yeah, so are you planning on like reading everything in the 70s then as it expands out into some wild areas, or are you going to kind of stick with the same main core books?
I think we'll probably do what we did with the 60s, and we read some Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, and regretted that once Kirby left. But uh, but then there wasn't on Marvel Unlimited anymore, so we stopped with that. We're reading the horror anthologies, Chamber of Secrets and Tower of Shadows, or Chamber of Darkness.
Chamber
I
of
always forget the names.
Darkness,
Um,
Chamber of
Vin-
Darkness, Tower of
Dark
Shadows.
Chamber of Secret Horrors.
and so we are doing
Exactly.
those because they're in the reading order. Um, I don't think we're going to
But
do
I discovered
Conan.
a. No, we're not
Oh,
doing
go ahead,
Conan.
Vince.
No, I discovered a book that started in 1970, went for 5 issues called Spoof. And I'm going to cover the first issue of that in November.
Yeah,
Interesting.
we're not covering Conan because it's not on Marvel
It
Unlimited.
was like a Mad Magazine kind of.
I think we lost
Yeah.
Vince.
Yeah, I think this
And
is on a
plus, it
little,
doesn't fit
little
into the
delay, but
chronology
yeah, we got
either.
the gist. Yeah, we got the gist of it.
Oh, sorry.
No, you just
Okay.
had a little lag there, Vince. You kind of, but we're good. Internet. We were just talking about this a minute ago. The internet is weird and it does weird things, especially with three people. So we weren't planning on talking about this, but I'm really curious now. So you're not going to do Conan, are you going to do stuff like the Micronauts, the Shogun Warriors, Godzilla? Or again, are you kind of sticking to the main superhero titles?
My guess is if they're in the reading order, we will. And I would think that Micronauts would be, because they cross over with the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. I think I should know this. I just read these.
Man-Thing for sure, but that's the one I remember.
I know they cross over with a few, and then
and the X-Men.
Yep, the X-Men. So I would think that we would be covering that. I have those issues, so may just be a way of finding a way to get them, but scan them or whatever. So that kind of thing. So
all right, so Avengers number 16. And one thing that I noted about this cover, and I think Beaulieu has discovered for us through some detective work, this is a Jack Kirby, Saul Brodsky cover, Beaulieu, is that correct?
That's what it says, yes.
All right. You got it. So one thing of note, well, you noted Rick Jones. What is it about Rick Jones that catches your attention here?
I just can't figure out what the heck he's doing on that cover. I think I mentioned that he looks like Steve Martin from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels when he's wetting his pants. But I don't know.
Staring lovingly at Cap's back, which is odd, but I don't know. It's just
he's got his hands real close to the side, and he's like looking. He's ashamed.
Yeah, it's odd. But you said the rest of it is great though, and it really does kind of let you know that Captain America is kind of in charge now. I mean, right. That's been part of the dynamic. I think the first 15 issues is that they brought Cap on in number 4, and he clearly is the kind of guy that needs to be in charge, and yet he was the newest member, and it felt kind of weird for him to be in charge when you had all the other people. And they, Stan kind of made a big deal in those early issues about seniority and I'm the chairman this week and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I think I want to get you guys' opinion on this. I think that part of the reason for their changeover to this new lineup is it's a more evenly powered lineup, which I think works for stories and is interesting. But I think part of it too is I think they just wanted Captain America to be the leader, and it worked better to have him be the leader of this group than the previous group. Vince, what do you think about that?
I agree with that. And also, I think it was kind of a tryout for Cap in order to get his own book, because, I mean, he's currently sharing a book with Iron Man at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Beaulieu, any thoughts on why they changed the team?
I never really thought about it in the way you mentioned it. I always just kind of figured it was to give Stan more freedom with the title. If you have guys who aren't in their own book, you don't have to coordinate everything. You don't have to remember what's going on in other books. I think it also distinguishes it from the Justice League at the time, because they really were kind of a Justice League ripoff, right? It gives it its own identity. And it's really kind of a neat concept to take 3 former villains, right? 2 of them were in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. You really can't say they weren't bad guys, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, we're just misunderstood. We didn't really know what evil meant, because English, I guess, isn't our first language. So it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. So it was kind of cool that they did that, where they kind of redeemed 3 characters that he probably really liked. And let's face it, Scarlet Witch was never really a hardcore bad guy. Quicksilver went back and forth a little bit, because he was okay with, I think, something getting bombed or something in one of the X-Men issues. But and Hawkeye really did try to be a hero at first, and got mistaken for the thief, and then got in with Black Widow, of course, and goes down the wrong path. But he was never really evil. So I've always kind of viewed it as getting away from the Justice League model, giving himself more freedom to tell the stories. But yeah, I think having 4 characters that are more evenly matched probably isn't a bad thing.
Well, and another thing that occurred to me is that for the first 15 issues, other than the one about Captain America joining, it always felt like Stan and Jack, probably both, were just having to come up with some villain and some reason that villain wants to fight the Avengers. the stories were pretty basic. It's like, okay, this guy shows up and he has an evil plan to destroy the Avengers. And then this guy shows up and he has an evil plan. You know, it was just kind of the same sort of thing. After 15 issues, I could see Stan and Jack and Heck and whoever else being like, you know, we've kind of done this. Let's do something different. And this, I think you're right. It makes them stop being the Justice League. But you know what it kind of does is it kind of makes them be the Fantastic Four. Because you've got 4 of them. You've kind of got the Reed Richards guy that's the older guy in charge. You've got the wacky, disrespectful, smart aleck that challenges everything. You got the pretty girl, and then you got the other guy, you know. And I think that's something that maybe Stan was more comfortable working with. And I totally agree with you that not having to worry about current continuity month to month would have been a huge attraction, because it remains that way for writers today, right? There are plenty of comics writers today that come in and they want something that they can kind of do themselves and not have to worry about, you know, what 15 other writers are doing this month. So I can totally see the attraction of that. So
Right.
Yeah, I also think moving away from the JLA model meant you didn't have to split the team up and have Thor, like you were saying, fight some big bad guy while Iron Man fighting another guy. And it really, I think it moves it away from the more formulaic 60s comics towards, it's probably really the beginning of becoming more modern.
Yeah,
where they
I'd
can
agree
tell
with
one
that.
story.
Because these guys actually interacted more with each other instead of, you know, I'm telling you to do this, I'm telling you to do that, hey, you do that.
Right.
Whereas these guys actually interacted and they had their own thoughts and schemes. And yeah,
Right.
I agree.
yeah.
And I mean, just think, we haven't gotten to 17 yet, but think about 17. They're all basically in the room fighting the Minotaur at the same time. They don't have to go, well, Thor would fight the Minotaur by himself, and then we got to have something for these other 3 guys to do, 4
Right.
guys to do,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you're probably right.
So the Old Order Changeth. And I keep a running tally of these. That I love that the writer of the comic tells us how great the comic is every month. Like, he tells us this. Remember where you were when you picked up this book that I wrote, because you will want to remember in days to come where you were when you first encountered this epic wonderfulness. You know, and I'm like, that's the thing about Stan. He's like the one person that could do that, and everybody's like, yeah, okay. Anybody else does that, you'd be like, what a jerk, right? He does that, and you're just like, yeah, it's Stan. That's just Stan, you know. So he can get away with it. It's hilarious. But all right, so we left off, and again, I point out no coloring credit, so we still don't know who's coloring this thing, at least not from reading the comic. But we get no introduction. You just have to get rolling.
Right.
And we're in a standoff from where things left last time. Again, I don't understand Jai / Ant-Man's new get up, but whatever. It just shows you that Hank's always changing things up, right? He can't leave well enough alone for 3 issues.
He's also the hothead of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their scientist guy is the guy with the anger issues. Not that I want to bring up anything later on, but let's stay away from that for now. But he is the guy who wants to keep fighting, whereas the other 2 are going, maybe we don't want to do this in the middle of the city.
Yeah, he's always trying to prove himself because he's with these other guys that are stronger than him, maybe, and he's always afraid that maybe Jan's going to look at him as the weak link unless he shows he's big and strong. I mean, think about this. How many times in meetings up through this issue is he sitting at the conference table, giant-sized? I mean, that's issues. The man has issues that he can't go to the meetings without sitting there, you know, big.
Clint does the same.
Exactly. I was just thinking we make that same comment about Clint in the current books we're reading.
Yeah.
They even gave him a big giant chair.
Yes.
Just let the man be normal size. My gosh.
Do you know how strong he is at that size? No. He's as strong as 2 people, according to Tales to Astonish.
Oh my goodness.
And at that size, he was also able to break through the Berlin Wall. So all it would have taken was 2 people to punch it at the same time to get through.
Now we know. Now we know, man. All right. So they're gonna fight the Masters. Now again, you guys interject here anything you want to throw in. I'm just kind of look through it here. The battles always we kind of move along because there's only so much you can say about them. But I like the idea that the Masters of Evil keep stressing the idea we're villains. We don't mind casualties. We don't mind collateral damage. You guys have to worry about that.
Right.
We couldn't care less if other people get killed. That's our big advantage. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess you're heartless jerks that don't care if anybody dies. And so the Avengers are facing a real quandary here. Do we fight in public, or and possibly hurt people, or do we let the villains go? Or it's not really clear what the options are here. I've never been clear on this.
Yeah, I think the first thing that stands out. This isn't going to answer your question in any way, but the first thing that stands out to me is that this is so comics code constrained. Because they're threatening civilians and stuff, but the melter melts a lamppost because they can't hurt people, right? Like these early Marvel comics, you don't see people getting killed on panel. You don't see the violence is very limited. And as you go through the 60s, this issue's jarring because we're in the late 60s where they're now killing people on panel and all that. And the melter would have shot at the Avengers, not at the lamppost in the comics we're reading now. Right. But his big threat is we're not constrained. Let's melt a lamppost. You're like, really? That's your big move.
That'll kill him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of weird. And then they take him to the other dimension, right? And the part I thought so since I'm being kind of snarky at times, the part that's cool about this is the Executioner and the Enchantress just leave. They try to warn their allies, but they're like, we're going to get out of here. And then they decide not to hurt people anymore. They get scared of the crowd, which seems kind of odd.
Yeah.
But that way they don't do any damage. But I think a lot of what's going on here is you kind of go, why aren't they hurting people? Why are they just running away? Why is he melting a lamppost? It all goes back to they didn't think it would get approved by the code if they did something more violent, right?
Well, plus I don't think that Enchantress and Executioner were as boisterous without their team around them either.
Yeah. Well, they have more dignity, I think, than the other two. The other two are pretty much run-of-the-mill villains. I know the Black Knight has some kind of dignified history, but he doesn't act like it, most of the time.
Not for long.
Not for long, exactly.
Yeah.
When Iron Man kills them.
So Thor takes them to a dimension where they can fight. That's pretty handy. And they beat them the Avengers beat them pretty easily then, and they come back. And by the way, I love that is Plan D. I was joking on Twitter yesterday that Ferrari and Thor both have a Plan D that they go to when they have to, which is interesting.
Well, I just think this is kind of silly in the other dimension, the fact that all the villains' powers work backwards, but the heroes' powers do not. Like Thor is still able to use his hammer just like normal.
What the heck? I was wondering about that. It just sounds like something that and this is a question I've asked a lot in this series. Who's coming up with these basic ideas, right? Because it would be Jack Kirby in some cases, it would be Stan maybe in some cases, the two of them together. And then Jack did the layouts here. So I just don't know who to credit / blame for some things. Is it? I mean, we know that Jack wanted to take credit when it was something considered great. Is it Jack when it's not so great? To be fair, I don't know.
I mean, we get comments a lot of times where they bash Stan and say that Jack did everything. I don't think that that's true.
No.
I've talked with someone who worked with guys like Gerber and some other people. It's our friend Michael, actually. And he said that they have said Stan worked, gave out a lot of stuff of what was going to happen. But obviously the artist was filling in some of the holes and some of the pieces and stuff. But I would say they worked pretty well together, but the artists had more freedom than they probably do now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think Stan just gave a starting point and an ending point and then wrote what the artist did. And maybe that did happen on some issues, but I think there's got to be more to it because there's too much going on that I think a writer would have to have some more input, but maybe not with Kirby. I don't know.
And I've always said, as much dialogue and stuff as you get in these, Stan was doing plenty of work, even if all he was doing was scripting it.
Right.
It's like a mini novel every issue. I mean,
Oh yeah.
whether that's good or bad is a whole other issue, but he does it.
Right.
Yeah, definitely not a 5-minute read.
Yeah, this is
No.
actually kind of a weird issue. I mean, I like the issue quite a bit, but it resolves the cliffhanger from the last issue in what, like 3 pages?
Yeah.
4,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then you have the Cap stuff in the jungle, and then
Yep.
the Avengers change their lineup. So there's a lot that happens in this issue when you go into it thinking, oh, this is where they get the new lineup. There's a lot more to it.
I've noted over and over as we've gone along through these first 15 issues before this that they'll cram so much into an issue, and then the entire resolution of the story takes place in like an 8-panel, 12-panel, tiny little boxes last page that wraps up with something like that big at the end. And I'm just like, it just seems hurried. It seems like they didn't really plan carefully enough how to space out the story so that you wouldn't have to cram like the last 30% of the story into the last page, but they did.
They hadn't got their
Over and
pacing
over.
down yet.
Yeah. Well, this was early days. That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So, any
We're,
thoughts
what, a
on
year and a
Captain
half
America
into the-
suddenly?
No, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, any thoughts on Captain America suddenly gaining worshippers in South America, burying the old Baron Zemo, and stealing a plane?
Actually, he tries to steal a plane. He didn't.
That's right.
He wasn't successful. The plane got blown up.
That's right.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, let me go ahead and change over to. Yeah, well, throws a hand grenade and it blows up. Right, so they have to find another way. But I mean, again, a lot happens there.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's just one page.
Yeah. So is
mean-
this really the end of Zemo? I don't remember. Do we not
It
see the
is.
old Zemo again?
Is yeah.
He is dead until his son comes back in the Steve Englehart Captain America run.
Yeah.
In the
And that's
issue
the
that they
Zemo
made
that-
into a record.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the Zemo that we know from the Thunderbolts and everything else, and
Right.
from the MCU theoretically, right?
Yep.
More or
Yes.
less.
Yeah, this guy he never even came back as a Legion of the Unliving member. I don't think. I mean, he's
Right.
He
gone.
might
gone.
have.
He might have. Okay.
He might have. I think he might have. I'm not positive on that. As you can tell, Vince and I, well, at least I'm not an expert. So people on Twitter will sometimes ask us questions, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I read that 2 years ago.
We say the same thing.
So Thor is again off with the trial of the gods, which again you can just see Stan, like you were saying a while ago, guys, that you can see Stan going, oh, thank goodness I don't have to worry about that kind of thing much anymore now, because Thor is going to be gone doing his thing. He won't be here. And there he is, by the way. He makes a big deal, Giant Man, out about wait till I get down to your size, partner. It's kind of hard to hear you up there. Well, then why were you big? If you can't.
He also didn't shrink all the way down.
No, he
If you
didn't.
look at those bottom
No.
panels, he's still oversized.
Yes, he
He
is.
is. Oh,
Or he's in
brother.
a high chair.
Hank,
I don't know which.
I just don't know, Hank. All right, so we get this great sequence where Hawkeye appears, and I'm going to go ahead and guess this is the first appearance of Jarvis uncredited.
Oh, you're killing me. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't think we've seen the Butler before this,
Okay.
and they don't name him here.
No, he doesn't get named for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, he appears again in the next issue, but I think this is the first time we even see a Butler at all. I think, and it may not even be Jarvis.
All right. Jarvis first appeared in Tales of Suspense 59.
Okay.
But but that may have, I don't know how far, I don't know how that relates to this issue in terms of way before or after.
November
or-
1964.
Okay, so that's before this.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
So, in fact, let me go back and I'll show you
Actually,
where
I
we
can
are.
look it
Let's
up.
see.
it's not very much ahead of this.
This is
This is
May.
May
this
May
is
65.
Yep.
May 65.
Yep.
So Hawkeye, and this is, by the way, I got to say, this is what's so funny about Hawkeye in these two issues. In this issue, Hawkeye is like, oh, please, guys, please let me join the Avengers. I'll be ever so respectful, and it would be such an honor. And they let him in, and then the very next issue, I got to figure out how to take over this thing. Iron Man, Captain America is an old fogey. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand anything. I got to take over. It's like, dang, Clint, how about turning on a dime there, man? Jeez. This is one reason why I've never liked Hawkeye that much. He's an a-hole, man. Just I never have. I like him more in more modern times, like in the Thunderbolts. But back when he was doing nothing but just sniping at Cap every issue.
70s Hawkeye's the best.
But 60s Hawkeye is a pain in the butt.
Yes.
He's just a pain in the butt. He offers nothing of value other than I'm going to make fun of Captain America, which is the guy that just let you into his team.
Right. When Hank comes back to the Avengers around, what is it, 32 or something? Is that about 28. Right? Issue? Okay, 28. One of the people responded to us, I think it was Rob Clow, actually, and said, these are the issues where all that happens is Hawkeye and Hank just yell at each other all the time. It's like two angry people just insulting each other left and right and like coming to blows. So yeah, he's not the greatest at this point in time.
No,
but I still enjoy him. But
he can, shoot the bonds that he put on this guy on I guess Jarvis off with 3 arrows at the same time, so that gets him in. He mentions how lovesick he was about Black Widow. I wonder whatever becomes of Black Widow. Do we ever see her again? I don't know. I guess she probably survives, right? And what do y'all think about this? They offer membership to Submariner after everything that he's done with them over the last 15 issues. I mean, he's been kind of the main villain of this book up through, really from issue 2 through 12 or 13. He was as much the main villain as anybody, and yet they kind of respect him and offer him membership. What's your take, Vince?
I don't think this was a smart idea because Namor was not on the side of the Angels as of yet. I mean, he still wanted to conquer the surface world. He's about to get his own storyline in Tales to Astonish. And when that starts, he basically still wants to conquer the surface world but gets distracted by the Serpent Crown. So, yeah, no, I don't think it was a good idea.
Can I just read that panel?
Please.
All right, this is the Submariner first. Until my people are again rulers of Earth's land as well as her seas, I can never ally myself with any humans, even though your offer does me honor. To which Iron Man thinks, spoken like the prince he is,
yes.
And I'm going to guess it's Jan, but I'm not sure, goes, too bad, he'd have made a great Avenger. He just said he wanted to take over the world, but he's so noble, and he would have been such a great ad. Just
well, remember, Jan values handsomeness above all else in a hero or a villain.
Yeah,
I bet he's not too bad looking under that helmet. How many times did she say that?
Yeah, because when Hawkeye asked if everything was okay, her reaction was "va-va-voom." So
yeah, va-va-voom. I mean, sure, yeah, exactly. So they all value something different. I mean, Iron Man in this issue is all about power. He's like, if we can't have Submariner, you guys need to go out and get the Hulk.
Right.
I mean, and I guess maybe his third option was Dr. Doom or the Red Skull. Maybe, I don't know. They got, they're powerful.
The Executioner's still in town.
Hey, Executioner, bring him on. Sure.
Right.
What the heck?
No, that would have been interesting if they got the Executioner and the Enchantress instead of
Quicksilver
and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I wonder if that ever crossed Stan and Jack and Dick and whoever's mind to get them, to make them Avengers. That
would have been interesting.
They're a little more evil at this time, though, aren't they?
They are very evil.
Yeah.
And more powerful in a way. They don't fit in the same way in the same power dynamic that Pietro and Wanda. I don't think.
I mean, look at this page here with Wanda in her costume. I mean, she's like already hunched over, subservient, and that Enchantress would never act like that.
Right, and take orders to write a letter. Take a letter, sister. You're Tony Stark. They basically are.
Relationship.
No, it's never has been.
No.
They're basically tired of fighting the X-Men, and so they're tired of being in competition with the X-Men, so they join the Avengers. Little do they know, in a few years they will be in competition with the Avengers in a different way at the newsstand, but with the X-Men. But So yeah, so they decide to write a letter and ask if they can leave the evil team and join the good team. Why didn't they ask to join the X-Men?
Pietro says so right there. He says he didn't want to be reminded that they're Homo superior all the time.
Yeah,
He
good
wanted
deal.
to,
Good catch.
he
All right.
wanted to just kind of blend in.
They had rejected membership in the X-Men
Okay,
prior to this,
good deal.
which
All right,
I think would have
so
actually made the X-Men more interesting.
for sure.
More colorful.
So
for
we
sure.
have a press conference, and again, Hank, dude, why? Look, he's even got a big chair. So Iron Man gets to be the chairman here, as always. This is one of the reasons I love him. He has to be the spokesman, and he's telling them we're adding Hawkeye, and the crowd is, it's these typical old white dudes with suits and ties on, and there's a woman writing stories about it. And by the way, I've mentioned before, I do like how Don Heck and Dick Ayers draw Iron Man in these early issues way better than the way Jack did. Jack is Jack, but man, I didn't like how he made Iron Man look in those early issues. So at least he kind of looks right here, kind of.
I have trouble with this art. I didn't when we were reading them in order, but coming back to these issues after seeing like Gene Colan and Barry Windsor Smith and John Buscema and other people drawing the Avengers, and I mean
Even George Tuska on Iron Man.
George Tuska and Iron Man with Johnny
I
Craig
love
inking
Tuska
them.
on Iron Man.
We may be the only two people who don't mind George Tuska because people don't
Right.
really like him. But I'm like, you come back to this and it's so static and stiff, all the art in this issue. And it's like, you look at an individual panel, you go, the people don't look bad or anything, but there's just no movement in these pictures. Sorry. It's just.
No, that's exactly what I want. And that's exactly, I mean, when I started reading comics around 76, 77, I went back and looked at these older issues and I just was not attracted to them.
Right.
I enjoy them now for the story and the history value, but not really for the art, honestly.
Right.
It's just,
Doesn't take
you
long,
grow up
though.
in a different era.
Once Buscema comes on and stuff, it starts getting, the art gets really nice. But,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of spoiled. The late 60s has some pretty amazing artists going on.
Does.
The big revelation for me is Dan Atkins. I did not know him at all. Really, I mean, I knew the name, but I didn't know him that well. But he's got some amazing art, and then he's a great inker. So I've been really impressed by him as someone I never thought of.
Actually, for me, it was Gene Colan because I was used to him in the Tomb of Dracula, the horror type of drawing, and then seeing him do something like Daredevil was just amazing. I like it.
He did Iron Man. I mean, I never would ever in a million years would have gotten Gene Colan on Iron Man, but he did it and it was good.
It's really good. He's good on everything. He does
Yeah.
Submariner.
Agreed.
He does the shadowy, dark stuff like Dracula. He could have done an amazing Moon Knight if Moon Knight had come along earlier, I think. Because anything kind of Batman-esque, Colan was really good at. So Dracula, anything like that. But I never would have put him on an industrial type thing like Iron Man. And yet he's so good, he makes that work too.
Right.
So I got to point out a panel here because this is what struck me when I was reading it again yesterday. So a white man being attacked by a leopard. So now, if it had been a native, he'd been like, they're used to it. Let it happen. Let it go. They those people know how to deal with a leopard attacking. But a white man. But keep going now. A white man being attacked by a leopard, too far for me to reach him in time. Only one thing to do. And honestly, I swear to you, I was hoping that when I turned the page, Cap and Rick would be sitting there eating popcorn watching. I just wanted that to be the one thing they could do is watch. The only thing we can do is enjoy it, Rick. Just sit back and watch.
No, it's the timely throw of the shield.
Isn't it that how they kind of know they're getting their civilization too? And you're just like, oh.
More white people.
So the non-white people in the story are worshiping Cap at the beginning because they don't know how to be free. And then later on in the story, he knows he's near civilization when they see the white guy
Yeah.
60s
Oh, there's the.
Can
Fortunately,
you go
that's
back
correct.
a second before to get off the cap stuff?
I
'Cause
got.
we're going page by page,
Can we
right?
just appreciate this panel for 1 second as I turn the page? Let's
It
just
is a great
appreciate
panel.
just
That's his
the
best
leopard
panel.
over. God, that's so good. All right,
That's the
there we
one
go.
panel that has movement in it.
It
Yeah.
does, yeah.
That's a really good panel.
Yeah.
How does Iron Man move a bag of mail with his magnets?
Because he's Iron Man and he's cool. You just
Okay.
don't ask questions about the chairman of the board, man.
They mailed him
That's whatever he
coins
has
at the time, and so he was able to magnetize the coins inside the envelopes.
There's a lot of magnets. There's a lot of magnets in 60s comics.
There are.
Oh, that's my single favorite moment so far doing this show was when Luke and I were talking about that a few issues ago, and Luke said the whole thing was like run by Big Magnet, and I just fell on the
Right.
floor. Big Magnet. That cracked me up. That just set me up funny. Okay, so he runs off. They didn't actually hurt the leopard. He scampers off into the distance. I love that. And they get a ride back, and yeah, they're towards civilization. Yeah. If you speak English, we must be getting near civilization. So it's English that marks civilization. There
Right.
you go.
Of course.
So again,
Not Spanish.
people. No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just in Latin America, but I can't imagine anybody speaks Spanish down there, right? Or Portuguese. But again, it's all about attractiveness with women. See, Happy's all distraught that they're not picking up a beautiful society gal.
Right.
And Tony's like, oh, it's okay. The Scarlet Witch is far from unattractive. So it'll be okay, Happy. We're not picking up any unattractive women this time. And I just, well, thank goodness, Happy. I don't know what you would have done. You know, if it had been Aunt May or something, what would have happened here? I don't know. You'd have thrown her overboard. I don't know.
The other trend in 60s comics is that they refer to women as females.
Oh God, yes.
A lot.
Yeah.
The females.
And not just villains.
No, everybody.
Everybody.
Yep.
It's true.
It's very
I
awkward.
do like that. This is a very Howard Hughes, Tony Stark during this era too, during this issue. So we hope to become Avengers. They will have us. Okay, so that's the attitude Hawkeye needed to have, but he quickly changes. So there they are being interviewed, and they have to prove their value. We get this race where Quicksilver shows off to Happy Hogan that he can outrun his car, which is kind of funny. It would be funny to see that in a movie with Favreau doing that, because that would, I think, would be kind of that Happy's pretty amusing.
Yes.
And then Tony takes his leave so he can change into Iron Man and come back out, and that's so that's going on. And then also a really, really strange looking Rick. I think he's on some kind of drugs here.
Look how happy he is.
Also, another thing I wanted to point out here is that Iron Man makes a specific point of saying we don't give our identities out to each other, and yet Wanda and Pietro do not have other identities. They are Wanda and Pietro, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver.
That's true.
And Hawkeye has no identity yet. He is not Clint Barton yet.
Yeah, he doesn't have a name until issue 63.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. So what issue?
63.
They go that long without ever saying what his name was?
When his brother dies, yeah.
Yep. But going back to Rick's face, because I'm really, this is one of the panels I really want to talk about. Look at the glee on his face while he's talking about Cap having killed Zemo, which, by the way, Zemo died in an accident.
He fell.
But like, there's way too much joy he's having in someone else's death. There's something really wrong with him. I think the joke I made was that him and the ham radio crew became a team of assassins after this.
The Teen Brigade Assassins. The Teen Assassins. I like it. Well, and I like that Cap's response is not, that you shouldn't have that kind of an attitude, Rick. Is his response is, well, that was a job and that's what I had to do, and the Avengers aren't impressed by that anyway. So yeah, okay. Well, all right. So we're having hors d'oeuvres in Avengers Mansion, and Cap's gonna roll up. Now, here's something I want to ask you guys about, because this puzzled me. So Cap and Rick, they see the crowd outside the mansion. And of course, in 1965 Marvel, the answer is to use your superpower to get past the crowd. That's just automatic. And so he leaps off the front of the car, over the crowd, swings in the window, runs down the stairs, and Rick is already there.
Right. And there's
I'm
no
like,
security.
Why did you do all of that through 1, 2, 3, 4 action panels? Which glad we had them, but
He had to do that to distract the crowd from Rick's entrance.
I guess.
Yeah.
But Stan caught it. So Stan here says, luckily there is no emergency. He's been here a while. Luckily, there's no emergency. That's why I waited for you as he's running. So I feel like that's Stan trying to kind of salvage. I think Stan got to about right here and thought, oh, Rick's already there. I better come up with something quick.
I think the big thing that really struck me was that later Avengers issues spend a whole bunch of time on the security. And I think even early issues talk a lot about the security of Avengers Mansion, and Cap just jumps in through a window.
Right.
Yeah.
And runs around the whole place.
Well,
we know
how did Hawkeye
issues,
get in to begin with? He also.
Right.
That's a very good point. But I was gonna say, we do know that in later issues there's like robot arms that come out and grab people and stuff, right? So they do put security in later, and it took a giant hole blown in the side of the wall for Gyrick to get in that time in 167, 168 thereabouts. So okay, so it is neat though. I gotta say, I do like the way that in only 15, 16 issues they've played up this whole idea that the Avengers are seen as celebrities. You know, they're going to talk in a bit about the A1, the security clearance and everything. It's very prestigious. It lets them go places in a hurry. I think that was when Cap got the flight back to the United States with Rick.
Right.
I like that they play that up a lot, that it's not just like a club of people with powers, but yet on the other hand, it's not a government agency either. That's one of the things I always loved about the Avengers, and one of the things I hated about Henry Peter Gyrick, because he tried to upset this, is that they have all the privileges and prestige of being like NASA or something, and yet they're independent and they don't have to answer to the government. You know, I kind of like them being in that area, kind of gray area between being like the U.S. government official rapid response unit versus being just a bunch of guys and girls hanging out at a clubhouse. They're kind of in between there in a gray area, and that's kind of neat to me.
Yeah, and they're not an adjunct of S.H.I.E.L.D. either.
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah. That's what Gyrick and Fury probably would have done, is made them under S.H.I.E.L.D. That's kind of what the Ultimates are.
Right.
But I never wanted them to be part of S.H.I.E.L.D. I like them being just like this all-star team that hangs out in this mansion. They don't even have like a government headquarters. Again, that's another thing about the MCU, is they give them the Avengers compound. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool in a way, but it's taking away from the idea that they hang out in this mansion like rock stars. They're really as much rock stars, celebrities, you know, as they are agents, secret agents, you know. They're this interesting combination of those things.
I can see that.
So, yeah. Well, all right. So, God.
I just love the tossing up of Cap.
Or at least Cap does say, whoa there, big boy. And I guess they do have high ceilings in Avengers Mansion. Maybe that's one of the reasons that they picked it out of all of Tony's property. It has the highest ceilings for Pym to do his growing tricks and stuff. But so they have to, what am I, a fever blister? This is I'm going to go ahead and do my Rick Jones thing here, because this is driving me crazy. Every other issue, Rick Jones takes great affront and offense at the idea that he is not yet considered an Avenger, nor is he treated in the same way as actual Avengers. And my point is, why would he be?
Right.
Has he beaten Kang yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
That issue 9?
Yeah. That issue 9.
Yeah.
He did sneak in.
Okay. All right.
And take out Kang.
Yeah. But I mean.
But I think the same thing. Is like, because you're a kid.
I just don't understand why he and Cap kind of encourages him. Cap is never like, Rick, let's face reality. Cap's always like, your time will come, son. just be a little more patient, young man, you know. And I'm just like, what are you stringing him along for until he gets bitten by a radioactive Gila monster and becomes Gila Monster Lad or something? I mean, what does Cap think is on the horizon for Rick Jones?
It's Rocky. He's going to become Rick Jones Bucky.
Yeah. But man,
He's going to get slapped by the Hulk, which is going to lead him to Captain America.
Right.
Then he's going to get slapped by the Red Skull in Captain America's body, which leads him to Captain Marvel.
Yes, that's exactly
and Captain Marvel will link to him without Rick Jones' consent.
Right.
Because that's the heroic thing to do.
That's true. All right. So Iron Man and the Wasp and Hank are all leaving. Cap's astonished. And the villains are all like, "This is my big chance." Whoa. I like the little head gallery of and Kang right there in the middle. So they do seem to think of Kang as kind of a very important villain in their rogues gallery already, which makes me happy.
Are Kang and Immortus, do they know they're the same person yet?
Not yet, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Okay. It's kind of weird that he's in the picture twice.
I was thinking the same. Yeah,
and the good old Mole Man, who one of our MAD members does not like at all.
Well,
so that's what we call Marvel a day. We call it MAD. Sorry.
Yeah. Mole Man, it pops up at least 3 or 4 times in these first 16, 17 issues. In fact, in the next issue we're about to get to, he pops up. And I'm just like, who thought Mole Man was a good Avengers villain? If you had told me that the villain that probably appears the most in the first 2 years of the Avengers is Mole Man, I'd have just said you were crazy. But he does.
He's the first ever Marvel villain, if you don't count the Golden Age, right? He's the Silver Age original, I guess. So
it's just odd. I never would have thought that. But anyway. All right. Iron Man comes out and makes another announcement. That's what he likes to do. I must leave. I have many personal reasons, which I will not be disclosing to you because I've just made it very clear that I value my secret identity. Unlike MCU Tony, who just blurts it out at a press conference.
Right. No, but poor Rick in the first panel. I'll never be an Avenger.
all in good time, Rick. That's what I'm talking about. All in good time, Rick. Man, what is that?
Oh, he's dead now, right?
I think he is.
I was gonna say, did he ever become an Avenger? I don't think he does. I think he never becomes one.
No.
He'll get better. I'm not worried about it.
Though he did stay in Avengers Mansion when he was rookie.
Yes, he did.
I like that Iron Man's farewell address is "Find the Hulk," not because he's a menace to society, but because you're not powerful enough without the Hulk. Bye, blam. You guys suck. Find the Hulk. Bye. Have a nice day. Drive safely. So everybody cheers him, and Iron Man is already having regrets. And they're off they go. Gonna lose myself in work for a long while. And we get the new team. So any final thoughts on Avengers 16? It really is a milestone, I guess.
And the crowd goes wild.
I was listening to your episode 5 or issue 5-1. And you said they hadn't said Avengers Assemble yet.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that, but it didn't seem like
when is the first time they say it? Did you notice it between then and?
I think it's in issue 10.
I commented on it at the time, but I don't remember now.
Okay. So it has been said before this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I was all upset with the Wasp at the beginning, when she was like, I think we should disband the team, because she wants some time off. It's like, well, guys.
I know, and they're like, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to disband the team? I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, that was terrible.
But in issue 5, when they were going to disband, it was just they wanted to take some time away, right? Wasn't it? So I just know that because I listened to it today. So,
and they're like telling Cap, well, you don't understand because you haven't been around as long as we have. It was like 3 issues, man. Come on. They were together for 5 minutes before they rescued Cap, it seemed like. So.
True. Well, then they made him a retroactive founder, too.
Yeah, exactly. But they always hold that over Cap like, oh, but, we're the founders, Cap. We've been around a long time. So we know that you want to keep doing this, but we're tired. You get tired doing this for a while. And he's like, you've done it 5 minutes longer than me. And I was doing it in World War II before you even born.
Right.
There's a weird thing in these early Avengers where they spend a lot of time with rules of order
Yes.
and meetings
Yes.
and like following these procedures on who's going to be chairman and why they're chairman that day and the rotation and all that. And I was like, did kids really care about that? Like, couldn't you just say that Iron Man's called the meeting and you don't need to have him be chairman?
I've never understood. I know they were really obsessed with it back then. They talked about it some in the 70s, but they were really, Stan was really into it. There was also, that moment, I mentioned this on Twitter too, that I just thought was hilarious, is there's a moment back there when Hawkeye first wants to join.
Oh, and they give him the rule,
yeah, I'll give you an Avengers manual so you can study our bylaws. I'm like, raise your hand if you think Hawkeye ever studied the bylaws. There's just no way. Clint's lying around having a beer. You know, I think I'm going to study the bylaws.
Are we sure Clint can read?
Article 17B, man. That's some good stuff in there. Oh boy. All right. Well, I always check for any letters, and there weren't any letters of note that I noticed this time. So I'm going to move us on ahead. Although the Mary Marvel Marching Society was quite the big deal back then, as I'm sure you guys know.
Oh yeah.
And there's the Trial of the Gods going on. All right. So let's go ahead and get into
the sea monkeys. Don't forget the sea monkeys.
Yeah. And some monsters too. That's cool.
That's not one of the ads where you can buy a monkey in the mail, is it? Because that was a real thing.
Oh, I saw that. I did see the monkey ad. Yes.
Don't read the. Someone shared a story about that with us, and it had a very sad ending.
Oh, it did.
Oh, yeah.
They got mailed a monkey.
I don't want to know. So no, my favorite ads are the Yukisawa or whatever martial arts. We'll get to that.
Okay.
That's coming. In fact, that let's see if I missed it. Yeah, Yubiwaza. There it is. We've been tracking the ongoing saga of boys to men becoming Yubiwaza, and only boys and men can do it except for Yoshi. She's the only female member of the Yubiwaza Society. So this is a fascinating and compelling saga that I want to know more about. I want them to do movies. I want movies. I want movies. I want magazines. I want comic books. I want TV shows. About it. It'd be awesome. All right, so let's get into the first battle of the new Avengers, and I don't mean the ones with Spider-Man and Wolverine. I mean these new Avengers, the funky
Cap's Cookie Quartet.
Cap's Cookie Quartet, yeah. All right, so we're back to normal here. We've got the explosive box 4 against the Minotaur, and I was really racking my brain here on this cover, going, do they ever fight the Minotaur again? What planet is he from? What's the deal with Minotaur? And then I read the issue. I'm like, oh, he's just a stupid monster from the dang Mole Man. Wow, what a letdown. You don't bill one of the Mole Men's flunky monsters on the cover as like this big like Kang showing up or something. But there.
Would you rather buy a comic that said you're fighting the Minotaur or that you're fighting the Mole Man?
Fair point. Absolutely. This is it. The search for the Hulk. And you have like the ghostly Hulk in the background. Without the raw power, again, they're buying into Iron Man's company line here. Without the raw power of Iron Man, Thor, or Giant Man, especially Iron Man, of course, how can the valiant Avengers hope to stop the Minotaur? Well, we'll find out. So, will the new Avengers, succeed in their search for the Hulk? And I do love this splash page. I mean, this is getting us to the splash page that really, is out of sequence with the story and is just kind of like another cover.
Right.
Thoughts on that style?
Do you notice in this issue in particular, but a lot of these early issues, Cap's shield is flat?
Or whatever it is. It's usually poorly drawn is how I would describe it, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, it'll occasionally have some curvature, but in these Avengers issues, it is flat.
Yeah. Like a frisbee.
It's like a pog being chucked. It's got the thickness on the side and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, the Minotaur looks pretty formidable in this picture. I'm not sure.
You can't see his diaper.
Yeah. That's right. Oh, my God. I forgot about the diaper.
He looks like Surtur or something in this on this page coming
Yeah.
up. You know,
He looks pretty
like
cool
a Thor
here.
issue. Well, we have Don Heck back, and Dick Ayers has been relegated to inking, but we still don't know who's coloring these things, and that drives me nuts. Was it the penciler inker that did the coloring back then, or did they just not credit the colorist, or
Might have been
what?
Mary Severin, actually.
Could have been.
I think they just had someone in-house, but it might have been the artist.
Well,
I don't know.
If it was a female, I guess they didn't feel the need to give a credit because that seems to be the attitude.
Well, it
Well,
could
she
have
gets
been
a lot of
colored by
credit.
committee as well, because I mean, the bullpen, they were just sharing pages back and forth.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know when we get colorists, but we've read some 1970 comics, and there's still no colorists that are being listed.
Wow.
Right.
Holy cow. I kept thinking it's going to pop up anytime now, but I guess not.
No.
All right, so everybody's got a gripe. Rick Jones, these three Johnny-come-latelys are now official
Rick
members,
Jones.
and Cap still won't let me be a full-fledged uniform. Okay, a full-fledged uniform. What uniform do you propose to wear, Rick?
Sweater vest.
With a big A on it.
And then Quicksilver says, I must be patient with my great speed. It is only a matter of time before Quicksilver replaces Captain America as leader. And then Hawkeye's like, does he really expect someone as young and powerful as Hawkeye to take orders from a relic of World War II like himself? And of course, Wanda's like, there's no questions from the Scarlet Witch.
No.
I mean, if you're going to be doing this, at least have Wanda saying, it's about time a woman ran this organization. I mean, let's have everybody be in open rebellion against Steve.
Not in 1965. You can't do that.
That's right. That's right. She also does say he's only the leader at the present.
Yes.
Right.
Well, she wants her brother to take over.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. She even says, but she
rate.
does say Captain America is no weakling. I shall enjoy being an Avenger. So,
Well,
he's worried if he can handle them.
She starts liking Cap in these issues.
Right.
Yeah, that's not surprising. And I say Cap is already worried about, can he control them? Can he handle them?
I still think the best part about Hawkeye calling Cap an old man is that Cap just came out of the ice, like a year ago at most?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Marvel time, it's probably like 3 days, but it's been like a year, and he went into the war, let's say 1941. So he was 18, let's say then. He was 22 maybe when he got frozen in ice. He's probably actually younger than Clint at this point in time.
And it's only been 20 years since between freezing and coming out, roughly.
I mean, but physically, he's pretty young.
He's like 40, if anything, in terms of calendar years. He's 22. Right. Calendar years, he's like 40. Well, that would be old. I would say is old man. So yeah,
that would be old. 60's 40. That's like our 60.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Old. You ever see what Aunt May looks like?
I dread the day that I turn 40, man. All right. So, but I do like that we have a new dynamic, right, going on. We had 15 issues of, Hank says something weird, Jan flirts with somebody, Thor makes some grim pronouncement, Iron Man, whatever. And like I said, it was getting kind of old, so I'm glad they shook it up, and now we have a whole different dynamic going on. It really does make it a new book, doesn't it?
Right, it does.
It really makes it a Marvel book.
Yeah.
I really would argue the first 15 issues are more like a Marvelized DC book.
That's fair. I think that's fair. So I don't know what's going on with the Hulk here. Apparently this machine is pulling him through orbit or something. It looks cool.
He got captured by the leader, right, Vince?
Right. That's exactly right.
The leader. Yeah. I still haven't read a leader story in my entire life. I don't know how. It's one of those things where I've never read an issue of a comic book that the leader was the villain in. Never.
Wow.
He's always seemed interesting to me, but I never read the Hulk regularly, and he was never in any of the issues I read. So I'd love to read one, but I don't have any. So, yeah. All right. So they go to the danger room. I mean, Avengers training room. And we get this. Hawkeye thinks he can do everything himself. And wait, hold on. Here it is. and Quicksilver has to knock him down. That was all on purpose to make sure that you would rescue your. This is like one of those team building exercises where you fall backwards and whatever, you know. So it's really not about showing off how powerful they are. It's trying to see that they can work together. Then Rom shows up, or the Titanium Man. I'm not sure which one. It's kind of Rom. The Titanium Man had a baby, and I first. Tell me if you guys got this impression. When this robot shows up, I'm like trying to figure out, so what's going on here? And my first thought is it's a friendly robot trying to help them. So, of course, they attack it and destroy it. And it kind of gives you that impression because it says, I bring a message from my master. So they attack it and destroy it. And then as it's dying, it says, you'll find the Hulk in the desert.
Right.
I'm like, so it tried to tell him it had a message. They ignored it and destroyed it. And with its dying breath, it gave them the message. And I'm like, are they going to say, oh, we acted rashly. It was here with information that we needed, and instead we destroyed it. No. Cap's like, although he's kaput, Cap has no remorse whatsoever. No regrets.
And word must have gotten out that they were looking for the Hulk.
Yeah. I just
if you
feel
go back
bad
a
for this robot.
page,
Okay.
if you go back a page, you'll see that the robot is trying to grab Cap in the top of where he's throwing the shield
It
at it.
concerns Hulk. Yeah, it's a mixed message. That's what I'm saying. It's confusing. I'm like,
and look how flat
here
that
to
shield
attack them?
is.
And it did come through their wall. So there's a very mixed message going on here. On the one hand, they're being attacked by a robot that's trying to grab them. But on the other hand, it's like telling them, I have important information for you. Please listen.
And here's the first time Wanda uses her power in the Avengers.
Yes, there it is.
And just notice in that top left panel how flat that shield is.
Well, I mean, I just look at it here and go, it got partly melted or something. It's just not. They weren't that concerned with the perfect regular nature of the shield in these issues.
Right.
And it's still not indestructible at this point.
Nope.
But I've got to point out, though, this 2-page spread is about as attractive of an action sequence as we've had in this comic, I think, from the beginning.
No, I think Heck and Ayers do a much better job on this issue than the previous one.
Yeah.
The previous one's very stiff. This one actually looks
Well,
pretty
Heck
good.
wasn't on the previous one. It was all Ayers.
I thought it was Heck and Ayers on the last one.
No, Kirby did the layouts and Dick Ayers drew everything else. There was no Heck.
That makes sense.
Oh, well, that would be why then. Yeah, this is much better.
Yeah.
Heck's. So if I said something bad about Heck in the previous one, I apologize. This is much better. Heck,
No, I mean, I'm really impressed by Don Heck at this period, right? In 1965, I think Don Heck's doing a really good job.
yeah, he's fine.
I mean, I think Cap right there looks great. All this, I mean, everything about this looks really good to me. So,
That means that last issue is even more painful because it's Kirby layouts and they're still stiff.
Yeah.
That's a bad sign.
That's what Jack was doing in the Avengers back then. I gotta be honest. I mean, I love Jack Kirby, and I've got hardcover multiple books upstairs about Jack Kirby. But his work on the Avengers that first year was not great. I mean, at the time it might have been, good, but I look back at it now, I think, Jack could do so much stuff that Jack would do with Captain America, whatever I don't know. It just,
no,
I mean, maybe compared to what DC was
doing,
doing,
to be posing everybody instead of having them in action. He was just posing them in different situations. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's only because we know what Jack is capable of and what he does in the Fantastic Four and other comics.
Thor.
Yeah, and Thor. Yes. And then you see what he does in the Avengers and you're like, this seems like what he did for 10 minutes at the end of the day before he went to bed. I'll bust out a quick Avengers now that I put all my real work into Fantastic Four and Thor. And I mean, again, I adore Jack Kirby. I love his work, but I just feel like it's not at his best in the Avengers. It just never really was. And he comes back and does covers later that are great. But these early issues, so all right, so it's the old mole man with his 3D glasses, which I've never understood. And they're using the Hulk's location as bait to lure. Oh, the UBYs, they got a color ad.
Yay.
To lure them. And again, I keep saying the Avengers. I've said this over and over in the show. The Avengers have just got to get a Quinjet because they use a different flying. They they need to get places. They always need to get places, and they use a different flying vehicle every issue. They never use the same vehicle twice. They have these experimental military vehicles or something from Tony Stark or whatever, or the Air Force. They need their own vehicle stat, and I'm shocked that Stan
they don't get it until Black Panther joins.
Right.
Yeah.
60 issue 61.
It's the first.
I just can't believe that they never said let's give them a vehicle. The Fantastic Four had 15 vehicles.
I think there's an Avengers
and the flying bathtub.
Yeah.
Sorry, Beaulieu. What was your?
I said I think there is an Avengers plane that gets mentioned a couple of times, but yeah, the Quinjet's pretty far away.
Yeah, they need something.
Yep.
All right. So the Avengers. I didn't even see this when I read it. And minutes later, as the Avengers continue to search, the rampaging Hulk holds his captor at bay. Oh, so we're flashing back to what's happening with the Hulk at the same time, right? He was nearby.
So you have read a leader story because he's in there. That's his head.
Yeah, I guess
that is his head.
But he never says anything or does anything, so I still haven't really seen him. I've read a story he's in, let's put it that way, but not everywhere he did anything.
I kind of like the way that this issue and Tales to Astonish 69 are happening concurrently and, almost jumping back and forth between the two books.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
I thought they were going to come together at the end.
That would have been great.
But they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of mentions it. They don't actually do it, but it kind of mentions it. So we'll see that. So the Mole Man drops them down his little trap door and off they go. That's pretty cool. And then the Minotaur shows up, and he's very underwhelming after what we've been promised from the cover, the splash page, the title, and everything else. He's kind of like, yeah, he's kind of a Minotaur, I guess. Does wear I don't know. So Hawkeye shoots his blast arrow at him. That's cool. And doesn't work out so good for Hawkeye there. So they run into this little cul-de-sac and get separated from Pietro. And there you go. Okay, he does say something. So there's the only bit of dialogue I've ever heard the leader say in a comic book. That's very exciting. Even Battleship Steel can't keep him out.
And you can't even tell that's the leader. I mean, he doesn't have the elongated head. He just kind of looks
a little bit.
Yeah, he looks like a piece of broccoli on the one page.
He's the follower, maybe. I don't know. So more Mole Man flunkies fighting Quicksilver. And they get him with the sleep gas and they tie him up. And Hawkeye is going to zap the Minotaur with some kind of a flare arrow. And then Cap uses the shield, the old, I missed. Oh, no, I didn't. I hit what I was aiming for.
It was not Hawkeye's idea to use the flare arrow. It was Cap. And then he was like, use the flare arrow. And then Wanda's like, oh, I see what he's trying to say. And then Hawkeye's still like, well, okay, I'll throw the flare arrow. No, that was not his idea.
No, not at all.
This is not the greatest comic in the world, but the one thing it does well is it shows that Cap is the leader. Like, everything that they do it's his plan. It's him taking charge, and the other characters going, wow, he's better than I thought he was, kind of stuff. And I think they do a really good job of creating the idea that Cap really is kind of a born leader. And I think it starts here, not last issue or earlier issues. This is really the issue where I think the more modern version of Cap is kind of created, where he's the greatest leader in tactical genius, all that kind of stuff.
Good point.
Yeah, that's why I liked the idea of doing these two issues together, is because at the beginning of 16, it is still completely the old formula.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And by the time we get through 17, it's a different book.
Right.
It's a different team. It's a different book.
Right.
Everything has changed. And
by the way,
like
there's the Darling Live Pet Monkey ad.
I was just, I was trying to look away. But they that was a pretty daring thing to do, not mailing monkeys through the mail, but that's pretty daring too. $18.95. Man, back then that was like $100.
Well, monkeys aren't cheap, man.
I want to find out what was the adjusted for inflation $18.95 in 2022 dollars would be.
I
want me to
think we
Google
did
it?
figure it out. It was like $150.
Good gosh. You don't see many ads for things in comics that are that much money.
No.
Even like your own army tank, or remember they're like your own army tank or your own submarine or whatever. I would look at those ads and be like, yeah, someday when I'm rich, I'll order an army tank from a comic book
For $6.95.
Oh, let Richie Rich order that, $6.95. My gosh, man, I was doing good to have 32 cents to get the comic book.
No kidding.
It's $171.67.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Just
Almost
to have poof flung at you.
$200. Wow. And you know who ordered one was Ross from Friends, apparently, I guess.
Oh, his little cappuccino.
Yeah. All right. So we were taking out the Minotaur. He butt at me in a pit of rage. That's an interesting. Oh, a fit of rage. It sounded better of butting at it in a pit of rage, but fit of rage. And by ducking, he hit the hard shell above me. And then Wanda uses the. Why didn't Wanda just use the hex power the whole time? But I guess it gave everybody a chance to do something. So that's cool.
Right.
And he gets his head stuck in a rock.
That's not even what happens, though. If you read Hawkeye's, it is Hawkeye, right?
Yeah.
He says, well, what do you know? All she does is point, and the whole wall of shale falls forward, locking itself around the Minotaur's horns.
Right.
Why do we need that? Why couldn't he just hit the wall? It formed
Why
around
didn't they just do that? Why didn't they just have Wanda save the day with her powers?
But it forms around or something.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It falls into his head. He already hit the wall.
Yeah.
There's a few times where the words in these old comics don't match the art.
Right.
Well, my understanding is he just gets stuck there, and they're just standing there looking at him.
That's not what the
He's
text
trapped.
says, though.
For all his size and strength, we trapped him as thoroughly as if he were just some penny ante crook.
Right, but if you go to the panel before that, Hawkeye's saying that the shell fell forward into his horns, which
locking around his horns.
Right.
His horns are embedded so deeply he'll leave them stuck in the rock even if he does pull free. So you're gonna have a Minotaur with no horns running around going.
No, he's gonna die, she says. And without his horns, death will follow quickly.
Wow.
She was cold.
It's very dark issue of the Avengers.
I would say Wanda probably knows more about Minotaurs than I do, so I'll give her that. All I know about him is they live in a labyrinth.
Right. In Greece.
Yeah, Greece, absolutely. All right. So they find Quicksilver being interrogated by the Mole Man. And I think Pietro got some moxie here. He shows some spunk. It cannot be as unbearable as the sound of your own drowning voice. Do your worst, man. I like the idea that a former villain can talk like a villain at times to another villain and tell him, "You're boring me. Your stupid plan, man. Just shut up and do it." That's kind of cool. I don't know that every Avenger would have said that, but I like that Pietro would. So.
And he hasn't thought about his vibrating out of his locks trick yet.
No, he would think of that later, but no. I think this panel right here, look at that. That's pretty good in both the art and the coloring. I really like that coloring that they use there.
They changed that coloring for the Masterworks.
What
they
changed?
Changed a fair amount of stuff. It's I probably can't share the screen with you, can I?
You can just hold it up.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can
got it.
that.
But I mean, I just like that it's kind of like a bright light shining through. Oh, yeah, they changed it to like normal coloring. Well, that's not nearly as cool.
Wanda's costume looks different too if you go to.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a one piece, whereas
it is a one piece
comic. It's a two piece.
Sure enough.
Yeah, I thought it was rather strange, chunky bikini look.
Yeah,
that's the original look. So they changed it.
They did change a lot.
They do change the coloring.
And I gotta say, this is as good as the Mole Man has ever looked. I've never been a big aficionado of the Mole Man, but between this panel here and then this one here, That's pretty cool. I mean, it looks very James Bond, 60s Dr. No kind of stuff, in the secret lair with the machinery and everything. I approve. I give a thumbs up to old Mole Man in these panels. Oh, it is Pietro, we did it under the leadership of Captain America, Beaulieu. You're right. We defended the Minotaur and we found you. It is to be expected, my sister. We are Avengers now. So this one panel here is kind of like confirming that they've made it, right? They've graduated from Avengers school.
Right.
That's pretty neat. And I like also that Mole Man's whole reaction here is they fight like raging furies. I never thought I'd have to resort to this, but they're too much for me. So they not only play up the idea that Cap is a great leader, they also play up the idea that Wanda and Pietro have been accepted now and have passed the test, and they get the sort of stamp of approval from a villain. They are really scary. They're really coming after me. I have to get away. So they really do kind of, in these last couple of pages, you know what I mean? They kind of hit all the check mark. They check all the boxes here by the end of what it needed to do. I thought that was impressive that they crammed it all in. And again, they crammed it into a page with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes. But, that's to be expected. And a lot of words.
And one of them is the end of Tales to Astonish.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, there he is.
He's dead.
Wow, Hulk is dead. Thank goodness. We'll never have to worry about Hulk again. Thank goodness for that.
Actually, I see the next Hulk appearance, Rick Jones gives him another dose of gamma rays, and he turns into the Hulk, but he has Banner's brain briefly.
Right.
So.
Oh, it's too bad they never do anything with that idea again. Oh, wait. So,
if you want to read the leader, Van, I think probably the best place to go would be the Peter David run.
Peter David. Hulk. That was what I kind of assumed. Yeah,
run.
That's what I assumed. I still need to read a lot of that Peter David stuff. That's the one thing I don't have on my iPad in CBR, CBR, CBX. That's the one thing I probably have that don't have from the classic Marvel. I wish I did as a Hulk. I've got pretty much every other main Marvel series I wanted, but I've just never gotten the Hulk, and I need to get that. I need to redress that somehow. All right, so let's wrap it up. So Hulk's apparently dead, but that's in a whole other comic. And they're pleasant and friendly now, but how will they stand up to our first setback? Only time can tell. And then Stan comes in here to tell us, you have just finished reading a milestone in adventure lore, but it is only a foretaste of what is to come. So be with us again next ish when the stirring cry Avengers Assemble, there it is, echoes throughout the land. I like that they've made up their mind now that Avengers Assemble is going to be the battle cry, and that's what they're going to say. So I think it just kind of came and went the first time or two. Hadn't really settled on it, but now I think they settled on it.
Well, yeah, because it was the defining cry at the press conference. So yes,
right.
That's them establishing.
All right, so there we go. And I checked again. I don't think any humongous letters of import. We do get Abe Vigoda still trying to teach us how to paint, though. All right. So we looked at 16 and 17, and I want your concluding thoughts. Let me start with Beaulieu.
Oh, wow.
What is the lasting significance? What should we take away from 16 and 17 in Avengers history?
I think it's stuff we've probably already kind of talked about, but I think it's the turning a team book into a Marvel book, turning a DC style team book into a Marvel book, which they'd already done with the Fantastic Four, by the way, because technically that was supposed to be a JLA, a response to the Justice League, right? But the Avengers really was the Justice League. You had Thor in his own title. You had Iron Man I know they were split books, whatever you want to call them, but they were still their own. They had their own stories.
Right.
And then, so this is really the first time where they took a team book from that kind of mold and made it into a book that could have those characters or not have those characters anytime they wanted. They weren't beholden to having Superman and Green Lantern and Batman, and because wasn't the JLA, if you didn't have your own title, you had to leave the book, right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of the opposite, where they took a character who has his own title, which is Captain America, but he's now with people who don't have their own title. And then Hank comes back, him and Jan come back when they get booted out of Tales to Astonish for Submariner. So it's kind of cool. They took a team book where they could do whatever they want, but is still connected in many ways to other titles, because Iron Man and Thor could come back anytime they wanted them, right?
Well, actually, they get kicked out of Tales to Astonish next month. They go right back to their book and have one last adventure and say they're retiring, and then Namor
is it
takes
that
over
quick?
in issue 70. Yeah,
It's that quick.
that
And then
quick.
they take about a year to come back to Avengers then, right? Because they come back, you said, in 28. So
Right.
I think that's the biggie for me. I think it just changes. I can't even imagine how big of a change this was at that time, because this had to be unheard of. Taking a book
Exactly.
that's all your big names, right? And just kicking them out of a book and going, we're going to let Captain America and a bunch of 3 other villains, really, at that time, who at the time really aren't super powerful. Quicksilver's fast, which is powerful, I guess, but Scarlet Witch isn't there yet.
Definitely
And
not.
Hawkeye shoots arrows. I mean,
And
What were the
who's the
chances-
next person to join? Is Swordsman.
Wow. How about that?
right?
Out of nowhere. Well, I was going to say, we talked briefly about the Enchantress and Executioner. How close do you think they came to Black Widow getting the spot here?
I think they came real close. Not in this book, but later on.
Yeah, in the 30s and 40s, especially like around issue 45.
Yeah.
They got pretty close.
That's
It
when they
just
get
seems
to
like-
that weird roster stuff, because Hercules is sort of with the team for a while, but he's not really with the team, and Black Widow's coming in and out of the book, and even like throughout Roy's run, you have Iron Man and Thor come back occasionally and then leave again, especially like around when Vision shows up, right?
Right.
So yeah,
They have to put Vision through his paces.
right. So yeah, I think the big takeaway for me is that this changes everything.
It really does. Vince, your thoughts? About
Mine
these
is
two?
that you can see that there's a whole lot of bickering in their future. They are about to go into the deep soap opera territory here with
Oh,
Hawkeye wanting to be leader, Pietro wants to be leader, Wanda wants to date Cap. Yeah, we're getting into soap opera territory, and it's a lot of fun. It really is.
I got a question for you, Van. You just read the first 15 issues more recently than we have.
I did.
There wasn't a whole lot of conflict between the members, was there? There's a little bit, but not a ton, right?
No, it's always really petty little stuff where they're sitting out at the conference room table and Jan's saying the villain is cute, and
Right.
Hank's like, "Oh, now, honey," and then it's just little tit tat stuff.
Right. But they're much more respectful of each other, except for the Hulk. But
Well, yeah, the Hulk is much more like the Thing. He talks like the Thing. He doesn't talk like the Hulk. I guess that's maybe how he was in his own book at that time too.
Right.
But I was just noticing that the Hulk was very much like a street punk rather than a monster. It seemed like he seemed like a really strong street punk. That was just like, you all bunch of idiots. I'm getting out of here. I ain't got time for this. Rather than Hulk smash puny. It wasn't. He hadn't gotten.
They hadn't figured out Hulk's main personality as of yet. Yeah,
Right.
he's still not like Defender's Hulk. Defender's Hulk is somebody completely different. So
he's Mr. Hyde.
Exactly. That's exactly. Yes. Yeah. He becomes more crude and loses his veneer of civility as a doctor, as a scientist. Yes.
But he's devious too. He's not dumb at this point.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. And I said that that's the one thing I really enjoyed about like the first 5 or 6 issues of Avengers was that even though they had a villain of the month, the real story of those issues was Hulk. He was like the subplot, the background story that tied all those issues together, because he's a member and then he leaves. They try to get him back, and it's always about the Hulk. They run into some other villain along the way and have like that be the big story, but it was always really about their relationship with the Hulk or their lack of a relationship with the Hulk.
Right.
Which is one reason why that What If issue was so powerful, where Hulk and Submariner actually team up and kill Iron Man. Lord. That was something. So, and we did that one as a patrons only special episode. It's available on the Patreon page. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate very much. It's just great to talk to you guys in general, but I had a really good time with this, and I'm glad that we were able to join each other together to talk about this very landmark couple of issues of the Avengers.
Thank you,
what was
Van.
your takeaway?
Huh?
What was your takeaway from these issues?
Yeah, no, it was just that, like you said, that it really does become a completely different thing. And if you start with the first page of 16 and go to the last page of 17, you just see a transformation of the story, the characters, the relationship, the dynamic, the chemistry, everything really does morph. And like we said at the very beginning, you can kind of speculate on the reasons why they decided to do it. And after 15 issues of the other formula, I was ready. I was ready for something to change. I didn't need the purple and orange guy to show up next month and try to destroy the Avengers. And Jan gets injured and Hank gets mad. And, it was just becoming kind of repetitive in a way. Stan was still good at coming up with different ideas, but it was essentially the same story every couple of issues. So I'm glad that they did it. And it's going to be interesting going forward now with the show. So we'll have you guys on again at the next opportunity. And I appreciate it. And I think we'll tune out for now.
Thanks,
All
man.
right. Talk to you later. Bye.